It's my favorite time of year at the Syracuse Regional Market. Apricots, peaches, blueberries, they're all in season. It's been great. Last Saturday when I was there, I found, as the statistics are showing, food prices are creeping up again. Professor Zephyr Teachout from Fordham, she's also a frequent political candidate, as you probably know. She published an op-ed in the New York Times with ideas of what local governments could do to help consumers and keep food prices down. And Sarah, one of them was that government should sponsor government-run grocery stores. Is that a good idea?
Well, I mean, I guess I see this is frustrating, I'm sure, on the part of politicians, right? Because food prices is a really potent political issue, and, Trump got elected saying he was going to lower them, found out he really can't. And so now you see at the local level in the New York mayoral race attempts to try to address this issue. It's a hard issue to address at the local level. The food prices are set by, national global food systems. Prices are affected by supply, by weather, by climate, supply chains. And these are things that are really out of the control of local cities and municipalities. So there's a real mismatch between the scope of the problem and then trying to solve it at this scale, at the local scale. And so one of the ideas, as you mentioned, has been to have the city own, grocery stores. I'm slightly skeptical about this because I'm not sure what problem they're trying to solve, It seems like a geographic problem, they're we'll just place them in places where there aren't a lot of grocery stores. That does not address food insecurity, which is more of a financial issue, right? And the margins on groceries are very low, 1% to 2%. So it's hard for me to imagine that a public grocery store would be able to lower the prices significantly enough to really make a difference. And one more little fact, most people do not shop at their local grocery store. They tend to go a little bit further. So I don't know that geography is the main problem here.
I think food deserts are a huge problem, and as local government tries to seek to address it, I think trying to bring business, they focus on economic development, trying to bring businesses in, but as you pointed out, if it's not financially lucrative, why would a business do that? The government runs military commissaries. It's quite costly, but I wonder, even with the small margin you reference, can the federal government figure out ways to do that where they're essentially run as nonprofits, right, or at minimal cost, so that people that don't have regular access to a grocery store, and it's inner cities, and it's also general rural communities, right? When I lived in Nebraska and I was asked if I wanted dry ice, and I was like, what's dry ice? People have to drive hours to get to a grocery store, and they have to keep their groceries fresh to bring them home. So if we could think about ways to run grocery stores in the nonprofit capacity, either through the government or with a public-private partnership, you can address health, you can address food deserts, and you can help address prices as well.
And yet, Tara, this has been tried on the south side of Syracuse several times, these partnerships, and it just hasn't seemed to work. What's your sense on this?
Well, I don't know a great deal of detail about why specific efforts haven't worked, but I think one of the problem is that often with local grocery stores, they have a problem with, all depending on the area, turnover in terms of getting their products in, people buying them, getting them off the shelves and into grocery stores. Certain products, obviously go very fast. Other things don't go very fast. They can't run the same type of sales that your big box stores like, let's say, Walmart can run. They can't reduce their prices as much because they tend to have a higher overhead than, let's say, Walmart does. And so I think for all those reasons, local efforts have a tendency not to work. But one of the things that I think we can do better is better food education. And what I mean by that is it's a twofold thing. One, what fruits are cheaper at what time of the year, what veggies, et cetera. Most people just want the fruits and veggies that they want. So there's not a whole lot of education that, maybe at this time of year, avocados are cheaper, maybe, so you use avocados then, but then later on, you don't use avocados, you find something that might be somewhat of a substitute. So that's one issue. Another issue that I think we really need to put more effort into and have some government support for are local gardens. There's been that local garden initiative, and you see some of these, and people are really trying, so that would help as well.
Let me pull Ben in here.
Yeah, absolutely. For the government to take it over versus businesses that have such a small profit, you're asking the government to take on the financial burden of overhead, all the things that take the logistics that were mentioned. So at the most, I would say that some sort of collaborative effort, the government working with those local businesses, would be much better at addressing the food insecurity.
Luke, any other tips in the last 45 seconds
Well,
we've
we have
got?
such a patchwork system in terms of their social safety net. So I understand what you're saying, Ben. I don't necessarily want government to take it over, but we're providing millions of dollars to help feed people through nonprofit organizations that give the food away. Is there a middle ground where rather than giving the food away, you create a more entrepreneurial model where the government operates like a business but isn't trying to make a profit and still helping people? That's where I think we can be creative and hopefully make some progress in the years to come.